Welcome to Twisted Truths, where betrayal meets brutal payback, and where the most unexpected twists expose what people are really capable of. This story isn't just shocking, it's personal. My name is Rudolf. I'm 35 years old, a physician specializing in internal medicine, and I live in a quiet corner of Milwaukee where my days are long, the patients steady, and the silence at night feels like both a blessing and a curse. I never imagined I'd be here, telling the world about my family. But maybe, if I put it all out there, I can finally let it go. I've always believed that love, when misused, can become its own weapon. My parents? They taught me that in every painful, silent sacrifice they demanded. You see, I was never the problem child. That title belonged to my younger brother, Colin. The golden one. The one who could do no wrong, even as he burned every bridge around him and danced in the ashes. I've been a doctor for nearly 10 years. It's a modest life. I don't drive a luxury car or live in a penthouse. But I've never needed that. My fulfillment came from helping people, solving the little mysteries of the human body, offering calm when fear clawed at someone's throat. But none of that training, none of that empathy, prepared me for the sickness festering inside my own family. I'd been sending my parents money for years. Quietly. Out of obligation, not affection. $1,500 a month, sometimes more if I knew they needed it. My father, Gerald, a retired banker, and my mother, Yvonne, a homemaker with a deep love for peonies and casseroles, lived in the same house I grew up in. The same creaky old house they refused to downsize from, because home is home. Colin, on the other hand, was a walking disaster. He was 31, still living like a trust fund baby without the trust fund. His resume read like a bad joke, one failed business venture after another, each more reckless than the last. Cryptocurrency, real estate seminars, affiliate marketing scams, you name it, he tried it. Or at least said he did. And each time he failed, my parents bailed him out. With my money. Or worse, loans, credit cards, pension withdrawals. They drained their future for his fantasy. I tried not to let it get to me. Tried to be the good son. Tried to smile through every birthday where Colin was showered with gifts and I got a book. Every family dinner where my achievements were a passing footnote and his minor wins were front-page headlines. I thought I could stomach it forever. Until the day everything shattered. It started with a routine checkup. My father came in complaining of swollen feet and waking up 4 times a night to pee. He joked about it. Said, "Guess my old bladder's giving up, doc." But I wasn't laughing. I ran the labs, and when I saw the numbers, my stomach dropped. Creatinine through the roof. Protein in the urine. The kind of markers that scream renal failure. I sat there in my white coat, holding his results, and felt like I was holding a countdown clock to his life. I didn't tell them immediately. I needed time, to think, to process, to brace myself for what I knew was coming. Because the moment I told them, everything would change. Or rather, everything would fall into its usual, sickening pattern: blame me, lean on me, expect me to fix it. That weekend, we had one of my mother's infamous Sunday dinners. Roast beef, scalloped potatoes, the whole nostalgic menu. I drove down to Racine, watching the leaves blur past in the fall breeze, trying to calm the war inside me. When I walked in, it was déjà vu. Colin wasn't there yet, he's never on time. My mother fussed over me like I was still 10. My father made small talk about baseball. But under it all was that tension, like something was brewing. And then Colin walked in. Late. Of course. Wearing a hoodie like he was headed to a frat party, not a family dinner. "Yo, Rudy," he said, giving me that lopsided grin he always wore when he knew he didn't deserve a smile back. I nodded, biting back everything I wanted to say. Dinner was a circus. My mom laughed at all of Colin's stories, no matter how pointless. My dad kept glancing at me like he was building up the courage to speak. And then, halfway through the mashed potatoes, he dropped it. "Rudolf, your mother and I have decided, we're going to refinance the house." I blinked. "Why?" "To help Colin clear his debts and start over. He's found a new opportunity." The room went silent. My fork hit the plate with a sharp clink. I looked at Colin, who had the decency to at least look down. My mother reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "Have you seen these?" I said, pulling out the test results from my coat pocket and sliding them across the table to my father. "Your kidneys are failing, Dad. You need dialysis, soon. That's going to cost hundreds of thousands. And you want to throw away your only asset, for this?" My father paled. My mother gasped. Colin said nothing. I stood up. My voice trembled, but it didn't shake. "You want to mortgage your home for the son who's failed every time, while ignoring the fact that you're dying? I won't stop you. But I'm not paying another cent. Let Colin take care of you now." My mother broke into tears. My father looked like I'd slapped him. Colin mumbled something, but I didn't care. I walked out, leaving behind years of resentment buried under that dinner table. And that was just the beginning. When I left that dinner table, I felt like I had finally drawn a line in the sand. For the first time in my life, I had chosen myself. But the high didn't last long. The drive back to Milwaukee felt like a funeral procession. I didn't turn on music. I didn't answer my phone. I just drove, numb, angry, and bitter. Not just at them, but at myself. Because no matter how loud I said I was done, a part of me still cared. Still worried. Still loved them. I collapsed on my couch that night, staring at the ceiling in the half-lit living room. My phone stayed silent. No missed calls. No texts. Not even from my mother, who usually sent emoji-laden follow-ups after we argued. It was like I'd been excommunicated from my own bloodline. The silence should have been peaceful. It wasn't. 3 days passed. Then 5. I buried myself in work, pretending the clinic was my whole world. My patients smiled, called me Doc Rudy, and thanked me for being kind. But every time I stepped into an exam room, I saw my father's hollow eyes and trembling hands. Every elderly man reminded me of the man I refused to help. But was it refusal? Or was it survival? On the 6th day, I got a text from my mother. "Rudolf, please. Can we talk? Your father isn't doing well." I didn't respond. 2 hours later, another one. "He's losing weight. He barely eats. I don't know what to do." Still, I said nothing. I told myself I was setting boundaries. But it felt like abandonment. The guilt gnawed at me at night, like something was chewing on my soul when I tried to sleep. Then came the knock on my office door. Sarah, the nurse at our clinic, poked her head in. Dr. Rudolf, there's a couple in the waiting room. They say they're your parents." My stomach dropped. I walked out slowly. And when I saw them, I barely recognized them. My mother's hair was unbrushed, her face worn with stress. My father looked like a shadow of himself, eyes sunken, skin pale, shirt hanging loose over his bony frame. They stood up like children caught trespassing. "Rudolf," my mother said gently. "Please, we need help." I didn't answer. I just led them into my office. I turned on my professional voice, asking my father clinical questions. He was breathless. Dizzy. Swollen. He hadn't been to any nephrologist since the dinner. They'd done nothing. They didn't know where to start. They thought they could wait. They couldn't. I picked up my phone and called a friend, Dr. Sasha Kaplan, a renal specialist at the Chicago Medical Center. She owed me a favor. Within minutes, I had an appointment scheduled for my father 2 days later. "Thank you," my mother whispered. I'll take you, I said. But that's it. She nodded. But I saw the fear in her eyes. The next day passed in silence, like the calm before a storm. On the way to the hospital, my father sat quietly in the back seat, looking out the window like a boy being driven to his own funeral. My mother held his hand, and I drove like a robot. Tests, scans, labs, all done in record time. I knew people. I pulled strings. But the results? They broke me. My father was in end-stage renal failure. Kidney function was under 10%. Dialysis was no longer optional, it was urgent. Transplant would be better, but costly. Unreachable for them without help. Dr. Kaplan explained it all to my parents gently, but directly. When she stepped out of the room, my mother burst into tears. I didn't know it was this bad, she sobbed. I didn't say anything. I wanted to, but I was so tired. Then came the moment I knew would crush me. Rudy, will you help us? She asked, her voice cracking. Can you cover the dialysis until we figure something out? No, I said, as firmly as I could. I told you. I'm not paying for Colin's mistakes anymore. My father spoke for the first time in hours. Colin doesn't have it. He's trying, he's applying for jobs. I laughed. I didn't mean to, but I did. He's always trying. My mother reached for my hand, but I pulled away. You mortgaged the house already, didn't you? She nodded slowly. And where is he now? Silence. I'll help you get to doctors. I'll drive. I'll call. But I'm not your wallet anymore. My mother cried harder. My father looked away. When I got them home, I watched them walk to the door like two ghosts, fading into the past. For the first time, I saw them as they truly were, flawed, frail, and tragically blind. That night, I sat in my apartment, holding a mug of tea that had long gone cold, and stared at the wall. I wasn't sure if I was the villain or the only one finally being honest. All I knew was, this was the cost of loving people who only love you when you're useful. A week passed after the hospital visit. 7 days of silence, no calls, no texts. I returned to work, filled prescriptions, read charts, and kept up appearances. But inside, I was unraveling. I wasn't sleeping much. I'd lie awake at night with memories swirling, of my father teaching me how to change a tire, of my mother humming in the kitchen, of birthdays where Colin blew out candles and I handed him gifts I bought with money from my part-time job. Always giving. Always being the reliable one. But now, I wasn't sure what I was supposed to be anymore. The guilt still haunted me. And I knew, deep down, I hadn't said my final word. One Friday night, I got a text from Linda, the neighbor who lived next to my parents. She was a retired nurse and had always treated me like one of her own. It simply read. You need to come. Something's wrong. But not what you think. I called her immediately. Rudolf, she said, her voice low, your dad collapsed again yesterday. They didn't tell you, I know. But that's not why I'm calling. I saw Colin. He was here. And I overheard him talking to a man about a check, something shady. You need to come by. Tonight. My heart froze. I drove back to my childhood street, heart pounding against my ribs like a war drum. I didn't know what I was walking into, but something inside me was shifting. A quiet storm. I parked a few houses down and approached through the backyard, the way I used to sneak in after curfew. Linda met me by the side fence, handed me a worn envelope. I found this in your mother's recycling bin. She must have thrown it out by mistake, she said. I opened it, hands trembling. Inside was a bank statement. One that showed a transfer of $38,000, my parents' loan, from their mortgage refi. Sent directly to a company called Coligro Ventures LLC. I blinked. What the hell was Coligro? Linda pulled out her phone and showed me screenshots she'd taken. Colin had been bragging to someone in the driveway about launching an eco-crypto startup. It was a pyramid scheme. Plain and simple. I felt my stomach churn. My parents had refinanced the house, not just for Colin's debts. They'd done it because Colin promised to triple their money through his new scam. They weren't just victims. They were enablers. They believed him. Again. I drove home in a daze, my fingers gripping the wheel until my knuckles turned white. I couldn't decide what hurt more, that Colin was scamming them again, or that they were still choosing him, even as my father's life hung by a thread. I didn't sleep that night. I went full detective. Searched public records, domain ownership, social media. And what I found chilled me to the bone. Coligro Ventures was registered under Colin's name. Its website was a WordPress template filled with generic language. Green profits, sustainable blockchain farming, eco-equity. No team photos. No legal disclaimers. No investors. Just a PayPal donate button. It was fake. A con. A cover. But the worst part? The email listed for contact was linked to a shared Google Drive, and it was public. I clicked it. Inside were folders labeled Investors, Distributions, Presentations. And then one folder labeled Family Plan. I opened it. Inside was a spreadsheet, clearly organized by Colin himself. It listed mortgage funds from parents, $38,000. Target profit, 5x ROI, pitch to dad and mom. If fails, claim scam victim, pivot to emotional guilt. Keep Rudy out. Too smart. Will ruin it. I stared at the line that bore my name. Keep Rudy out. It wasn't just betrayal. It was strategy. He had planned it, knowing I'd see through it. Knowing I was the only one who wouldn't fall for his lies. So he deliberately excluded me. Brushed me off like some analytical threat to his con. I closed the laptop, my hands shaking. This wasn't just about favoritism anymore. This was fraud. Exploitation. Manipulation. And it was killing our father. I could have called the cops. But I didn't. Not yet. Because something inside me, something I didn't know I still had, snapped. Not with rage. But with clarity. If they wouldn't listen to truth, I would make them see it. Not through yelling. Not through begging. Through revenge. And this time, it wouldn't just be poetic. It would be surgical. They always said I was the responsible one. The level-headed son. The fixer. The doctor who didn't make waves. They were wrong. That night, staring at Colin's spreadsheet, something inside me changed permanently. I wasn't just angry. I was focused. Precise. He wanted to keep me out. Too bad. I was already in. And I wasn't leaving without tearing his little empire to shreds. I began planning like I was preparing for surgery. Not emotional. Just clinical. Every step would be measured, every outcome accounted for. Colin had always been sloppy. Loud. He relied on charm and chaos. But me? I relied on facts. And I was about to weaponize them. Step 1, document everything. I copied every file in that public Google Drive, screenshots, metadata, internal notes, even deleted drafts Colin had forgotten to wipe from the trash folder. I archived his whole fake EcoCrypto site and traced the server IP. It was registered from a coffee shop Wi-Fi in Lincoln Park. Typical. I built a folder labeled Family Intervention, Legal Backup and encrypted it in 3 different drives. If he tried to scrub anything, I'd still have it all. I also checked to see if my parents were legally tied to Coligro Ventures. They weren't, thank God. The money was transferred directly to Colin. Which meant if this failed, my parents wouldn't just be broke, they'd be humiliated. And that's when the idea really clicked. Step 2, let him drown in his own lies. Colin was a pathological liar, but like all liars, he had a blind spot. He thought he was smarter than everyone else. I called Linda. I need a favor, I said. What do you need, hon? I need you to attend his next pitch. Pretend you're interested. Take notes. Record what he says. She didn't hesitate. With pleasure. It didn't take long. Colin was hosting a private investor brunch at a rented hotel conference room the following weekend. Linda showed up dressed like a retired heiress and got the whole thing on tape. Colin was in rare form, spouting garbage about sustainable cloud farming and carbon tokens. Promised 10x returns. Said, the big wave is coming. Even name-dropped Elon Musk. I cringed listening to it later. And then, the smoking gun. I've already got my parents in for $38,000. And my big brother's a doctor. Once I get him involved, the real money flows. That's when I knew he wasn't just a scammer. He was dangerous. Step 3, rebuild the narrative. My parents still saw Colin as a dreamer. They couldn't help themselves. So I wasn't going to tell them the truth. Not yet. I was going to show them. I started small. I visited Dad more often, just to check on him. Took notes on his symptoms, spoke gently, but deliberately pointed out rising treatment costs. Dialysis was draining him, physically and financially. Are you getting help from Colin? I asked casually. My father sighed. He says he's working on something big. Just needs time. I see, I replied, handing him a document from the insurance office. You'll need this for your out-of-pocket meds. They just doubled the copay. He nodded. The worry crept across his face. I did the same with Mom. Brought her a medication calendar and carefully noted every unaffordable drug in red. We might have to cut back on groceries, she whispered. Just until Colin's venture picks up. That was it. That was my opportunity. I leaned in and said, you're sure about that? Because I know something, and I need you to see it with your own eyes. Step 4, set the stage. I waited until the next Sunday dinner. Not because I wanted to, but because I needed it to happen on their turf. Colin arrived in a designer hoodie, another stupid purchase, no doubt, and flashed that greasy smile. Yo, Rudy. Been a minute. I smiled. Hey, Colin. Actually glad you're here. I pulled out my laptop and placed it on the table, turning the screen toward our parents. What's this? My mother asked. Just some research I've been doing. On a company called Coligro Ventures. Colin's face paled. Rudy, come on, what are you doing? I clicked play. It was the full video. Linda's recording. Colin's entire pitch, complete with lies about our parents' investment, the fake promises, and the part where he name-dropped me as a future backer. My mother gasped. My father's hand trembled as he reached for his water glass. Tell me, I said to them, my voice steady. Does that sound like someone trying to help this family? Or does it sound like a con artist? Colin stood up. You had no right to record that. I didn't flinch. You had no right to steal from them. The room was dead silent. And then, I dropped the last card. I handed my father a printed copy of the spreadsheet Colin had labeled Family Plan. He read the line, keep Rudy out. Too smart. We'll ruin it. That's when he broke. Get out, he said to Colin. Dad, come on. I said get out. Colin stormed out, slamming the door so hard a picture fell from the wall. My mother sank into her chair and cried. For the first time in my life, I didn't rush to comfort her. Because we weren't done yet. After Colin slammed the door and disappeared into the night, the house was frozen in silence. My mother sat at the dinner table staring into her untouched plate of roast beef, her lips trembling like she wanted to say something, but couldn't. My father? He just leaned back in his chair, arms crossed over his frail chest, eyes locked on the crumpled spreadsheet I had printed, the one where Colin reduced our family to strategy. I didn't say a word. I let the truth settle like smoke after a fire. I didn't come to argue. I came to end the delusion. Rudolf, my mother finally whispered, how long have you known all this? About a week, I said. But Colin's been planning it for months. He knew you'd believe him. He knew you wouldn't question him. And he knew I'd be the only obstacle. My father flinched. We trusted him. We thought, maybe this time. This time was no different, I said, sharper than I intended. And now you've risked your home, your retirement, and your health. I stood, sliding my laptop back into my bag. I'm going to help you recover, because you're my parents. But don't ask me to forgive what you chose to ignore. They didn't respond. But for once, they didn't defend Colin either. The aftermath. I filed a report with the Wisconsin Department of Financial Institutions, attaching the evidence I had gathered on Coligro Ventures. Linda was more than happy to write a witness statement. I also reached out to a journalist I knew from a local news network, Jasmine No, someone who covered financial scams and small-time fraud rings. We'd met once when she interviewed me for a medical outreach piece. I sent her the story. She called back within the hour. This is gold, she said. I can run it under fraud and family betrayal. When can I interview you? I don't want my face in the story. Just the facts. You'll stay anonymous, she promised. But people need to see this. The article dropped 3 days later. Crypto family fraud, Milwaukee man scams own parents with fake green investment scheme. It blew up. Not just locally, but online. Reddit. Twitter. People were furious. Some recognized Colin from entrepreneur networking events. One woman came forward saying she'd given him $5,000 last year and never heard back. 2 others confirmed they'd seen his presentation, and smelled a scam. The state opened an official investigation. I didn't gloat. I didn't text Colin. But I did get a call from a blocked number. I let it go to voicemail. You smug bastard, Colin growled in the recording. You think you're the hero? You ruined everything. You made me look like a criminal. I swear, you'll regret this. I deleted it without flinching. He wasn't the first person to call me a villain for telling the truth. He just hated being exposed by someone he'd written off as too straight-laced. Rebuilding what was broken. I worked with a financial advisor to help my parents stabilize their remaining assets. I negotiated with the dialysis center for a payment plan, and even found a nonprofit that helped cover transplant medication costs. But I still made one thing clear, I wasn't going to carry it all anymore. You're going to have to downsize, I told my parents one night, weeks after the article hit. Sell the house. Move into something smaller. It's the only way you'll stay afloat. My mother nodded quietly. My father didn't argue. The for sale sign went up that month. And then. A visit. It was a rainy Thursday when the doorbell rang. I opened my apartment door to find Colin standing there, soaked, eyes red, shoulders slumped like a man who'd finally realized his world was gone. Can I talk to you? He asked. I didn't move. I messed up, Rudy. I know I did. I wasn't trying to hurt anyone. I thought it would work. I swear, I really believed it would. And that justifies stealing from mom and dad? I asked, voice flat. Or writing me off like I was the enemy? He looked down. I lost everything. No, I said. You lost everyone. He didn't have a response. I'm not going to report your threats. But I suggest you disappear for a while, I added. Because more people are coming forward. This isn't just a family matter anymore. He left without another word. That night. My mother called, her voice fragile. He came by earlier. We didn't let him in. I just wanted you to know. Thank you for telling me. There was a long pause. I wish we had listened to you sooner. I didn't say anything. Because part of me didn't want to hear it. But deep down, a very tired part of me appreciated it. By now, I thought I had seen the worst of Colin. The con. The manipulation. The shameless leeching. But what happened next, proved I had still underestimated him. 2 weeks after his doorstep apology, I got a call from my parents' real estate agent. Rudolf, she said carefully, I just wanted to inform you that your parents' house has been pulled off the market. What? Why? I asked, heart pounding. Well, your brother called. He said he had handled the financial situation, and that the sale was no longer necessary. Your father confirmed it later by email. I hung up and called my mother immediately. Mom, I said, trying to keep my voice calm, why is the house no longer for sale? She hesitated. Colin came by again. He said he found someone willing to invest in Coligro. He gave us a check, for $50,000. My blood went cold. No, I said flatly. That's not real. That's not his money. My father took the phone. He said it was legitimate this time. He sounded serious. He said he sold equity in the company to a foreign backer and wanted to make it right. I pressed my fingers to my eyes. Dad, Colin is under investigation. He's trying to bait you again. Silence. Then my mother whispered, but the check cleared, Rudy. The money's in our account. I didn't sleep that night. A trap revealed. The next day, I reached out to Jasmine, the journalist who covered Colin's original scam. You need to dig again, I told her. He's not done. Within 48 hours, she called back. You were right, she said. He found a new investor. A guy named Sergei Ruskov. But here's the kicker, Sergei isn't some international backer. He's a known money launderer with connections to several cryptocurrency pump-and-dump schemes. She sent me a file. It showed that Colin had essentially sold a fake equity stake in his fake company to Sergei, for a front payment, promising triple returns within 90 days. The $50,000 was bait. A setup. And my parents? They were now directly tied to a criminal transaction through Colin's account. If Sergei didn't get his money back, or worse, if the feds tracked the flow, my parents could be implicated. Even if unintentionally. I called my mother again. Listen to me very carefully, I said, trying to stay composed. Withdraw that money. Now. Transfer it to a secure savings account under your name, and call the police to file a statement. Say you didn't understand where it came from. But Rudolf. Do it, Mom. Or you'll be laundering criminal money. The line went silent. Then, finally, she said, okay. I believe you. The final reversal. That Monday, federal agents arrested Sergei during a raid in Miami. His entire operation unraveled like tissue paper in a hurricane. And Colin? Colin's name came up during the sweep. He wasn't a big fish, but he was tangled in the net. I got a call from Detective Langstrom of the Milwaukee Fraud Unit. Your brother's being charged with wire fraud, financial misrepresentation, and accessory to laundering. We'll need your cooperation. I've got files ready, I said. All organized. Good, the detective replied. You've done more legwork than half our division. I didn't smile. This wasn't triumph. It was survival. My mother called again that night. She sounded broken. They've frozen his accounts, she said. They came by today. Took his laptop. His phone. Everything. Are you safe? I asked. Yes. The agents told us we're considered victims, not accomplices. Because we reported the funds. I exhaled for what felt like the first time in months. A moment of truth. A week later, I visited my parents. Not for dinner. Just to talk. We sat on the porch. The maple trees rustled overhead, shedding the last of their orange leaves. My father sipped weak tea. My mother sat with her hands folded in her lap. We were so blind, she whispered. I tried to warn you, I said, not unkindly. But you only saw what you wanted to. My father nodded. And we nearly lost everything because of it. I just wanted to believe my son could finally succeed, my mother added, barely holding back tears. I looked at her, and for the first time, I didn't see a betrayer. I saw a mother desperately clinging to the fantasy of her youngest child being something he never was. I'm not asking for your apology, I said. I just wanted to stop. My father looked at me. It has, he said. Colin isn't coming back from this. And part of me knew, he was right. The trial didn't take long. Colin pleaded guilty to wire fraud and conspiracy to commit financial crimes. A plea deal, likely pushed by his public defender, was the only thing that spared him a longer sentence. He was handed 18 months in federal prison, with 5 years of supervised release. He never looked at me in the courtroom. I wasn't there for vengeance. I was there to make sure the truth wasn't buried under another smooth lie. A brother no more. My parents didn't attend the hearing. They said it was too painful. But I went. Not for Colin, but for the version of myself that sat at too many dinners, swallowed too many insults, and stayed quiet too long. That version of Rudolf deserved to watch the lie unravel. As Colin stood before the judge, shackled and stripped of every illusion, I realized something I hadn't expected to feel. Pity. Not sympathy. Not forgiveness. Just pity for a man so consumed by shortcuts that he destroyed his own life, and nearly took down the rest of us with him. When the gavel fell, it didn't sound like justice. It sounded like an ending. The family aftermath. My parents sold the house. They moved into a modest one-bedroom apartment in Wauwatosa, near a quiet park and grocery store. No more mortgage. No more second chances. I helped them move. Box by box. Not because they asked, but because they didn't. That silence, that humbled quiet, was more honest than any apology they could have spoken. As I unpacked the last box of old family photo albums, my mother touched my arm. We were wrong, she said. Not just about Colin. About everything. I nodded. I know. We didn't say much else. But I stayed for dinner. Rudolf's life, now. My work at the clinic continues. Life isn't wildly different, same patients, same hours, same worn-out coffee machine humming at 6 a.m. every morning. But something inside me has changed. I no longer feel like a man carrying a secret weight. I no longer question whether I'm loved just for what I can provide. I'm free, from the guilt, from the cycle, from the need to prove myself to people who were never watching. Colin, is serving his sentence in a minimum security prison in Indiana. Last I heard, he was trying to get certified in HVAC repair. Maybe he'll stick with it. Maybe not. I'm not holding my breath. We haven't spoken. I doubt we ever will. The final visit. One rainy afternoon, I visited my father for a follow-up. He was seated near the window, staring out at the gray sky. Your kidney's doing well, I told him after the checkup. Numbers are steady. He nodded. Then he looked up at me and said something I'll never forget. I don't deserve it. I placed the chart down. Maybe not. But I didn't do it for you. I did it so I could live with myself. He closed his eyes. And I think, for the first time, he understood. In the end, truth has a way of surfacing, even if it comes twisted through pain and betrayal. As one wise voice once said, sometimes your greatest enemy was once your closest ally. If this story struck a chord with you, let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, share, and spread the word, because justice deserves to be heard.